What's up, everybody? We're coming live from Redhook at the Function House. I'm Mike Gentile, along here with Anthony Vitale and Johnny Dee.
Hello, everybody. Tonight we have a very special situation here with the founding fathers of disco, Brooklyn style. We have Danny Cole, Tommy Musto, and Ralphie Dee. And the reason why I think this is one of the more special situations with the Function House is where I think one of the questions we're going to ask almost everybody that comes through the door is, who was your influence and who were the DJs that were before you? And the reality, I would think, with the three of these guys is there probably weren't many because they were the first. So having said that.
So Danny, first question is for you. When did you start DJing?
It started about 1973.
1973. So were there any influences?
Well, I was a studio drummer, and I worked for my dad, and he was a big influence on me.
So your dad was your influence?
Yeah, being in the business, the music industry was wonderful.
That's awesome. So Tommy, what about you?
I got started in probably the end of '77, and the catalyst for that was a guy who was working for my father, who did it as a hobby. He was actually a repairman. My father owned a television repair shop, and he took me over his house, and he had a Clubman mixer and a pair of 1100s, and after seeing that, I was done. I was done.
Ralphie Dee.
In the place. What's the question again, guys? I fell asleep there.
What year was it? What year was it that you started DJing? And who was your influence?
How much blow was around it?
Yeah. Well, we were doing little ones at the time. But I gotta say, it was in high school, and how I got influenced was I used to stay with a friend of mine, rest in peace, had a lot of older brothers, and they had these tapes in the car. They were 8-tracks. They were called heavy tapes, heavy custom sound.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you didn't know that, yeah. Anyway, I was into rock, and these guys were into these heavy tapes, and they weren't mixed. They were just, disco music that I hadn't heard. Maybe a couple of things, Barry White and Harold Melvin. And then from that point on, I got the first, you did ask me when I started, right? So high school, when I was in high school.
1920.
So, 1920, yeah.
And just so you know, there's no drugs right now. This is Ralphie Dee straight up.
Hey,
Patty Tapes wasn't an influence?
Anybody influenced me as far, yeah, absolutely. The first guy was the DJ from Penthouse, who was the guy who did the tapes, Rick. And then when I was like 15, a friend of mine around the corner took me to the first club I ever went to, Speaks in Long Island. And when I walked in that place, and the DJ, I walked right up to the booth, and the DJ, coincidentally, his name was Peter D'Agostino, no relation, because my last name's D'Agostino, no relation. And I was, there were girls all over the place, my friends, yeah, I'll be right back. I was like this. Just watching.
Still like that.
And that once I saw it, it was actually like the first club I was in that I actually got to see this guy really, I was amazed, and I was sold immediately. I was done.
So that gave you the itch.
Yeah, that gave me the drive to like, wow, this is like really cool. Girls, liquor,
the blow,
music, the blow. I found my calling right there.
And just a quick correction. I don't want to take the throne of beginning this, because I wasn't. I came after these guys. They're older than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I admired them.
Well, but on that thing, I met Danny back in 1981, and we were in the neighborhood on Henry Street, which is where Danny's from, and I grew up in the neighborhood, and a friend of mine was dating his sister, so he says, why don't you come down to this block party? My girlfriend's brother's gonna be playing, so. I'm like, you've been to parties, you see all these people spinning, it's like the same shit, whatever. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go see him.
Even back then you were jaded?
Yeah, I was a prick back then. So I walk down the block, and I'm looking, and I look up, and he's got a setup on top of the stoop, like totally different. It wasn't in the middle of the street.
It's a picture of that
Steve,
exists,
yeah,
right?
And my friend Steven had done this thing called Let's Go Disco, which was on the wall. And I look up, and Steven brings me upstairs, and I meet him for the first time, and Danny's there with 2 1100s at a block party, which is unheard of, a clubman. And he's sitting in these riding mixes, and I'm just bugging the fuck out because I was DJing for a year already, but the people that I was around, it was just, SLB1s, D1s, maybe somebody had money that had 17s, but nobody ever had 11s, and you never saw them on the street. And Danny was just doing his thing, and we hit it off that night, and then a year later, I DJ'd a party for his sister, and he told me, you know, why don't you come to the club? He picked me up, and then we started our relationship. But before that, Danny was in the scene for many years. So
Quite
where
a
were
few
you
years,
early?
yeah.
Where were you way before the Plaza Suite days? Where were you?
You know, I hopped around a few different clubs on the island, 231s, Uncle Sam. I did the Cameron back then. So I hopped around, but I never made one club my home. I was never comfortable. I started a club in 77, going into 78, called Jay's 2, 86th Street.
Cross street from White Castle.
And still there. Across the street from White Castle.
Right.
Tell you, when I got done in there, I was in.
Yeah, you were on the
We
tables
used to go
going.
to Fort Hamilton
Anyway.
Parkway after Plaza Suite. We used to go to that White Castle.
This place was a dead zone. There was nobody there. Somebody had, well, anyway, I made a deal with the owner. I did the lights, I did the sound. Before you know it, there was a line outside. It was $3 to get in. $3. Place was packed every night. From there, he got a little serious with me. He didn't want to give me a raise after a year. I moved out. Plaza Suite was my new home.
Woohoo!
That was it.
That's history right there. That's history right there.
Now-
A lot of history.
Now,
Brooklyn pioneer right there.
Now, switching to Ralphie, I always joke with him. I said, you know, when you used to go, if you owned a club in Brooklyn, you have to fill out your paperwork. So, you know, do you have your liquor license? Do you have your cabaret license? Did you hire Ralphie Dee? Fucking guy was at every club. It might not have lasted, but he opened every club in Brooklyn. You know, and at one point, you know, Danny and I were, you know, Plaza Suite, and it was almost like I didn't really know Ralphie then. And I always was like, you know, Danny was never like, you know, Danny will kill you, but Danny was never a confrontation. And I was always like, you know, fuck Ralphie, and like it was to me it was a
Watch your
competition.
language.
But Ralphie, you know, I love meeting. I love Ralphie, but I just look back and I say Ralphie was everywhere.
Thank God, because every club he left, I came
Yeah,
in.
right, that's right. That's right. More history right there. Absolutely.
He goes, "What are you doing? I'm leaving here next week. You want to go?"
And that was more than one time, too.
Meanwhile, I get to the club, it's like the crickets in the.
Nah, not really.
Well,
Well,
with him.
Well, and then the funny thing, years later, my partner Nikki and myself, we went to 21 Hudson, and the guy said we had a connection. I forgot, some wacko says, "Yeah, why don't you come over here and audition for this fucking whatever he was." So Nikki and I, we pull up, we bring 6 crates of records, we're dressed up, the whole thing. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. We're like playing records, but like doing all this kind of shit. This guy gets a basketball, he's throwing it through the fucking lights.
Ziggy.
So we never hear back. Who opens the club? Ralphie Dee. I go there. He's wearing a T-shirt, ripped fucking sweatpants.
That was
like,
Club
I was
D.
wearing it was just, but that was a Ralphie Dee. Ralphie just had that.
The first one that you gave me was the Penthouse right before it closed.
Yes.
You were working
That's
there
right.
before
Daddy
it became.
gave it to you right before it closed.
Right before it closed, exactly. Well, I don't know where you went after
No,
that.
they would change. They would no.
Change it to pastels.
There you go.
Yeah.
But what would happen? See, I don't want to get this the right way. When I would go somewhere else, I would try to put somebody in where I was that I knew.
In case he had to go back.
No. But hey, listen.
A little
Not
insurance.
for nothing. There was a lot of clubs. I would go back, and they were still good. But back then, clubs were clubs. There was so many people going around. We didn't have to worry about it. Today, the pie is so small. You go out and you leave a club, all of a sudden, it's like there's not enough
even
people.
then, it was very difficult to get a club gig.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
which is why I said, screw this. I'm going to go to the studio.
Right.
It was a very difficult, and
Very.
especially in Manhattan, you know.
Yeah, because of
everybody
the
had
diversity.
A strong arm.
But
also.
it's also back then it was all, and still today it's all who you know.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you know
Yeah, kinda.
you were with the right promoter or the right club owner,
Kinda.
and
You were Ralphie Dee, you're all right.
Yeah, well, Ralphie Dee, but then Ralphie was pissing people off too because
So Ralphie
he
was-
was bouncing all over.
Yeah,
Ralphie was the it DJ.
Right, but what was happening was a lot of people, in a funny sense, would say, it's just, well, we got to go to this club, so don't even bother. Why? I guarantee you Ralphie's got the freaking job. But I did the same thing with Pucciarelli. Pucciarelli gave me, I remember 1982, Scarlett's, which Sozi ended up working at. Pucciarelli worked at before. And what happened? I get a call one day.
And these guys, none
Ralphie.
of these guys are Italian.
Yeah, Ralphie, what are you doing? You're not working, are you? I was like, yeah, well, I'm working over here. Well, you know what? I just punched the shit out of the owner in Scarlett's. Come down and get the job. The guy knows who you are. True story. Funny, but that's just one.
For those of you who don't know, this guy was the DJ at 2001 Odyssey during the time of Saturday Night Fever, right? Talk about that. You know, I have a question. During the movie, the DJ they had play you actually resembles you. Like, why?
Yeah,
Was
I
that
know the
the-
hair, right?
But he got it because his afro was better.
That was it.
I understand
Well, I had actually cut mine before, so yeah.
I can't understand why
You had to
they
use
had
some soul glow.
Why they had someone play you that looked like you.
I'll tell you this. Well, it actually wasn't like that. What had happened was the whole Odyssey thing was a total fluke. Nobody knew. Nobody had any idea that was going to be what it was. And for me, I got to say, it was the right place at the right time. I worked at a little bar called The Drift Inn on Coney Island. It was a small little place. And it was funny. At my cousin's wedding, I took the night off, and I had a blue crushed velvet tuxedo on with a bow tie. In him, we're drinking, we're drunk. Come on, let's go out. Where are we gonna go? Let's go to Bay Ridge. Hey, it's at this place, Odyssey. They got that girl that sings that Doctor's Orders song. All right, we walk into Odyssey. First time I ever went there. I was like, wow.
Wow, aluminum.
Yeah, I was. Oh, yeah, right. No, but I was really impressed. But I'm standing there getting a drink. What were the drinks? Like $2 at a time. Whatever. I'm standing there, and I look on a DJ booth, and I'm like, I went to school with that kid, Mike Rella, and I'm trying to get his attention. I mean, well, remember, I'm DJing at this club, and he goes, yeah, come on up. And I walk in, and he's like, I was like, whoa, Mike, what's going on? How are you? And he starts telling me how he's the DJ there, and this and that, blah, blah, blah. 10 minutes later, the real DJ comes. Nothing against Mike, but Mike was holding it down. He would actually play like a half a night because the real DJ was the owner's son. But long story short, the whole movie thing came about with some guy. If you read the magazine article, Tribal Rights of Saturday Night, you can get it on the internet. But some guy, a writer, came in to see his mother and just came into the club and started to write the story. And then they just started filming. And obviously the John Travolta thing came from Welcome Back, Kotter. And I swear to God, I'm not going to lie. I met him once, and I said like 5 words to him. I never even knew the show. My little brother was the one who showed, because he had a lunchbox that said the sweat arms. I had no idea.
But I will tell you something.
I had no idea.
On Inside the Actor Studio, he mentioned those 5 words. I was pretty sure. I don't know. He was talking about Grease, and then Pulp Fiction. Quentin Tarantino brought him back. But he said,
listen, I want to just acknowledge this guy Ralphie that I met there. Meanwhile, but anyway, long story short about the Odyssey Club. The script had nothing to do with the DJ. The guy, who, for those of you who don't know, is actually Monty Rock III, who was Discotheques and the Sexalettes, and he got there, whatever. But
he was incredible on the mixer too that night.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he was.
So
but
nobody really knew that this movie was going to be.
Let me tell you something.
But you had a little part in the movie, didn't you?
Absolutely.
You were like in the
well, if you really want to call it a part, I just happened to be there.
Are you still getting residuals from that?
Yeah. I just happened to be there one night because the owner and a lot of the regulars were there. And I came, it was like a Wednesday, whatever. Anyway, and they were shooting the scene where he runs out of the place with the girl, and he says, this place is a shithole. And he walks up, and all of a sudden I hear, extras, extras. And I was in the bar drinking, and he goes, well, you stand here, you stand here.
Where were you, in the bar? Right to the
in the bar, right. And he says, okay, I want another guy's positioning my hand. He puts my hand on the wall, and I'm talking to this girl, and he says, John is going to brush by you. I just want you to go like this after he brushes you, look this way, and continue the conversation. I did it like 20 times. I was like, I'm in a freaking movie. That's freaking really cool. You know? Meanwhile, they cut the scene, and they never used it. But later on in the night, they had to go back and edit some dance footage, and I happened to be standing by the door, and if you really, really look.
If you look close.
They look really close. I had my freaking
and actually,
brown leather jacket on with the freaking
but
Keanu
you wanna
shirt
know
over,
something?
with a cigarette.
I have the Japanese laser disc of that.
Right.
And there's a part when she says, Tony, can I wipe your forehead? Were you the one who handed her the napkin? Because if you look, there's a fucking letterbox. There's a way you get in there.
Only in letterbox format.
And it's
Listen,
Japanese.
It's quite apparent Ralphie missed his calling as an actor.
yeah, you know what?
Listen, I bought the DVD, the laser disc just for that.
Yeah, but the thing is, getting back to it seriously, it was just right place, right time. But I really wish I would have been a little bit smarter. Well, like everybody says, if you only knew what you knew now back then, I'd be a millionaire. But nobody had any idea, any remote idea that movie would be one of the biggest cultural things of the 70s. And I'm blessed that I just happened to be part of it. But if I live to be 100 years old, that'll always follow me. But you know what?
Well, how long did you DJ there for?
I started at the end, summer '77. The movie was filmed in September 77, finished I'm sorry. No. September. April 77, they started filming like a month later, and by September they were wrapped up, and the movie came out December of that year. So I started in 77. I worked all of 78,
Very
79,
good with
and 80.
dates. I ask him things about my life.
No, I'm like a computer when it comes to
You're
that
good
stuff.
like that.
Even though I had to get the date right a little bit, you know, some of these residuals that we used to do years ago, but I'm still pretty sharp though.
But now, after that, I wanted to go into how did you guys all meet? Danny, Tommy, and Ralphie.
Who you asking?
Who you asking?
Oh no, hey, there you go.
Well, Tommy was talking to me before. I had met Tommy many years ago, and in his father's store, which he just reminded me of.
Yes.
And we're looking like 1976.
Yes, about then.
About then.
I wasn't
Ralphie.
I was liking the music. I
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
DJing. That's all.
And I did a few things for Rick, Heavy Custom Sound as well. Ralphie and I go back long time.
And we started, and what kind of rekindled us seeing each other. Well, that didn't sound too good. Hard. You know, seeing each other again after a while was the Disco Award.
Jammer.
No.
Wait. Danny walked in.
The Disco Awards in Roseland.
Interview.
The Disco Awards in Roseland in '78.
Right. I won Best Mix of the
Best
Year.
mixing DJ, yeah.
Rumor has it.
Right.
Rumor has it.
That's history right there. There's a little history. Yeah.
And you won
DJ of the year,
award.
DJ of the year. You know, I still got the picture
DJ of the
me.
year for 2001 Odyssey. And then, Kamath will be the guy who opens every club in Brooklyn for the next 10 years.
And I believe Dan Pucciarelli won.
Yeah, that's
Best
right. Yeah,
local
Pucciarelli's
DJ,
a part of history, man. Part of
But
history.
we also were in the same record pool. Infinity
Yep.
Records.
Yeah.
Charlie just got this whole record pool
That was
started.
13th Avenue,
He
right?
was
13th
working out of
Avenue?
his house at the time.
Well.
And there was only maybe 5 of us. And by the time he grew, he opened a store on 13th Avenue.
And we went to each other's clubs all the time. Wednesdays,
Yeah.
boom, closed the
Yeah.
place up. Well,
I had Danny Pooch down the block. I was on 86th Street. He was on 86th Street. You were Quitton Road, on the neighborhood. And we all met at after hours. And we stayed
hey,
there.
that's it. Right, I forgot about
We
that.
stayed there for 2
Twice as
days.
twice as nice. Oh, forget about it. Now that's another interview for another time.
Let me just say this about Desiree. I would end Plaza Suite about 4, get out of there about 5, get in my car, go to West 6th Street to Desiree.
Triple park your car.
At the front door, there would be Big Mike standing there with a huge Johnny Walker Black. And he would look at me and say, "Hey, Dan, welcome. There's the booth.
And you wouldn't
Just
see
give
what
me a
was
half
going on.
hour." I go up there, spin for a half hour, make everybody happy. Drinks around the house. Lines are coming out left and right.
There we go. Whoop, there we go.
Now
We
get-
could
do
talk
a
about that on this show.
Segue time.
I have a segue. What I wanted to do, Tommy, you were partners with a guy when you did Dynamic Duo. You were partners with Tommy Sazi.
Rest in
It's
peace.
Sozi, but I call him Sazi because I'm
Because
just
that's what you
I'm
do.
that guy. So tell me about Tommy, and then
I actually met Tommy from Little League, believe it or not, Our Lady of Grace. And I was actually partners with somebody else. I don't know if Nikki remembers Robert and Basciani, Snake. We were partners. We were kids just starting out then. And then he went to pursue Major League Baseball, or tried to, and I became partners with Sozi. And then we started going around to all the clubs. And that's when that's how I met you first. Actually, we didn't even speak to you then, but me and Sozi went to 2001 Odyssey. We wanted to hear a real DJ. And we used to sit there at the table and say, "Wow, he put those 2 records together and write them down."
When he told me that, I was like, "You're telling me
that
you
was,
used to write mixes down?"
that was like
wow, that's flattery.
early
like, come on,
'78
wow,
time.
that's something.
Yeah, well, late '77. And I don't know when we actually physically.
I know when that is. I know exactly when that was.
Yeah. All right. Well, again.
Let me know when you want me to say it, or go finish the story.
So Sozi, we wound up joining Intermetro Record Pool.
Oh.
sure.
First Intermetro Record Pool was on Lafayette and Spring, and we just so happened to meet Carlos De Jesus at that time, and Carlos got a kick out of us. We were like Laurel and Hardy.
For those who don't know, Carlos De Jesus was the music director of WKTU Disneyland 2, which was one of the most influential disco stations in the world, and it was in New York, and so that was Carlos.
And Carlos took a liking to us, and then eventually we started doing Paco's Super Mix and the other mixes of the show amongst a lot of other guys. But meeting Ralphie, I don't remember the exact thing.
Hadars.
Oh, that's right.
How
To
can you
beat the
forget that, man?
Kloslovich. I happened to go out in Staten Island. I don't even know who I was with.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I walk into the club and he's there DJing. So of course I'm a novice. I'm going there, start talking to him. Oh yeah, I DJ too, blah blah blah. And he was telling me that his monitor didn't work. So me being the technician, I went down there. I said, yeah, I'll fix the monitor. And he happened to be playing Beat the Clock. I said, you know what? If I fix that monitor, you give me that 12-inch.
You got to of them. There you go.
And that was
That was the beginning,
yeah. A little brain dead.
And then after that, what you did, you, Sazi, and Ralphie, you did the 3D Mega
Right.
Mix for Tommy Boy.
Exactly.
Which is, I think that's like a nice,
Yes.
some history with that.
Yeah.
That tied in from that. I was working with Tommy and Ralphie was DJing. Of course, he had a much influence. We wound up getting together, and I did it in my bedroom. The
Let me
three of
just
us, if
say,
you remember that.
Tommy Boy Records, founded by Tom Silverman. Tom Silverman did like a remix contest for like, whoever could put the mega mix of the whatever was out. So it was Planet Rock, Planet Romance, Renegades of Funk, all that stuff. So then, that's when these guys got together and put it together. And every time, I can't hear Renegades without hearing Renegade. It's fucking stamped in my brain. So,
I haven't heard the original mix that we did.
I tell you the truth, I like the
still have
original
it?
better.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So
I get $50 a piece. I got 3 of them.
No, not.
Oh, you want the tape?
After we
I
won
can't
the
help you.
contest, we actually went to Tom Silverman's house, and
Yeah.
we wound up doing the work with all the masters.
That
at
opened
time.
up, that was
And it
great.
was so funny. The guy who introduced me to DJ was the engineer's cousin, and the engineer turned out to be Double D of Double D and Steinsky.
And they had won the contest that Tommy Boy had that same contest the
incredible.
year
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
and Double D and Steinsky won, and I came in second. So that's what influenced this. Is, you know what? I got to come in first. It's like, but wait a minute. You know what? I think how I could get to first place. I'll get Tommy and Tommy. We'll all do it together, and it worked.
He
Boom, we
used
got
me.
first place next year.
But that was a great experience.
Yeah.
We were in his house.
St.
I don't know,
Claudia, remember
once,
that?
twice a week for a few weeks.
Ripping apart math of songs that
It was a lot
we
of
were
fun.
like.
It was a lot of fun.
We were like, oh
because
my
all
God,
the
listen to this
fucking
program. Oh my
early
God. It was great.
hearing the
So,
original
so what
masters.
made you guys get into the production aspect? Like, why'd you want to make records?
Nobody would hire me in a club. No, I'm kidding.
Ralphie was getting all the gigs.
No, Ralphie was getting all the gigs. I always had an itch to be more technical and wanted to play. How I really got started DJing is from my paper route. I went and bought myself a fake Stratocaster, and I said, this is too hard, fuck this. And my brother was going to clubs, and he would be going out at 11 o'clock with his big hair and his checkered pants. And I started to get into it. He was playing, Barry White, James Brown.
Oh, don't mention Barry White. In
Yeah,
front
I
of
mean,
this guy.
that's better for the last
if
video.
anybody out there is looking for like the Barry
The
White,
real
house
Barry
mix-
White, not the
no,
remixes.
If you want a mobile for a wedding, first, my last, my everything. Gentile's got like every version. He's got fucking extended mixes, radio edits. He got like the bar mitzvah version, the Sweet 16, the 50th anniversary one, whatever one you want.
The only
Gentile has them all.
version,
was saying.
the only version I play is the one that Johnny made.
That's it. That's the only one you gotta play.
He made
But
the
I
remixes.
didn't want to take the light. I want to give everyone. I want to spread it around.
I forgot. What
Talk about how when I met you,
how
I
you get
turned
into
I
production?
turned your life around that time.
My brothers, I saw what he was doing, and I said, you know what, fuck rock music. I still like rock music, but I was intrigued by the disco thing, and they were into R&B too at the time. And from there, I just wanted to be more involved. And after DJing, it's kind of a natural progression. Drum machines and sequencers. I went and bought some stuff and started messing around with it. And then from there, I kind of taught myself
So you worked with some really well-known artists.
at some point.
Want to name a few?
Johnny D.
That's the main one.
That's the
Say
pinnacle
Michael
right there.
Jackson, Celine Dion. I just.
I was fortunate enough to work with some cool people. I didn't actually get to meet many of them, but I worked with Michael Jackson, Gloria Estefan,
John Cicada.
John Cicada, Olivia Newton-John.
Linda
Another
Etta.
Day Without You,
Yeah.
right? You did a remix of Just Another Day.
Yeah. Celine Dion, thanks.
You also
Thank
did an edit of BQE on Henry Street.
Yeah,
did a
you see
Papa
that?
Super Mix. That was a big one.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. That kind of, I guess one of the reasons why I really did that is because I didn't see myself being a DJ at 60 years old. No offense.
Oh, that's it.
But
That's it. I'm not
I was
talking, you know.
obviously.
I got a good segue
wait,
for that one.
obviously I was dead
do
wrong.
I.
Wait a minute, don't leave. I was dead wrong because people who I look up to are still DJing, killing it.
Right? And if you
So-
would have asked any of us here, I'm sure, would we still be here today, considering coming from where we came from? I would have thought you were out of your mind. And
Just to
still
survive all the
freaking here.
things.
You know, and it's not like, I'm not going to say that I'm a rich guy and I don't need the money, but it's just like, it's just a part, it's in the blood. Everybody here is connected in one way or another. And if you trace those roots back, it's like really, it's a pretty interesting story. Like,
yeah, I agree. And the perfect segue into this is that probably the reason why I'm a DJ is because of you guys. Because you guys.
Thank you.
No. But in all
Thank you very
seriousness,
much.
you guys were influences on my brother, who was a DJ, who was then an influence on me to become a DJ. So it all starts from somewhere. So you guys are an influence to a lot of people.
Thank you.
So Ralphie, I have a question for you. You transitioned from the disco into techno.
Yeah.
Dare you?
Well, there was,
That's a crazy transition.
Well,
Yeah,
disco
well,
died,
well,
if you know
You
that.
actually had a real successful career as a techno DJ.
yeah. Let me give you the quick version. A lot of people don't realize it, but there was a period that's called the disco sucks period. A lot of people don't really say anything about that. The only person I know that actually commented and in detail about it was Nile Rodgers. He was a very big part of it. But anyway, in the end of '79, early '80, the disco scene became distasteful because it was disco this, disco that. But a lot of R&B records were starting to happen. All those early, like
Prelude.
Shalimar, all the Prelude stuff, right? But right around '82,
Which is your
'83
time.
came
You love that.
which we call. I remember I called hip hop. I can't remember who named it, but they refer to hip hop as a term for rap. But Planet Rock was the biggest punch to the face in the music business because it went from slow R&B to this electronic thing, and the music took a different turn. I got involved in playing different music over the years. So I played disco, and then when the disco thing kind of like faded out, I started to play the R&B stuff in the early '80s, all those Staten Island clubs, and then through the mid '80s, all the the Planet Rock and all of that, and right, yeah, exactly. Okay, electro, right. In Europe, it was referred to more than electro. So then that became house, and now you're looking '87, '88. House became very pop. And it was at the time that Tommy and Frankie, Musto and Bones, all those records that they were doing on Fourth Floor and stuff started to become big hits.
And the break goes on.
You know,
right?
and right, exactly. So now
That's a
I'm
big
hanging
factor.
out with these guys, and now Tommy, from him going in, having the studio when Tommy started out with Silvio, rest in peace. Gotta send a shout out, Silvio. We miss you. I started hanging out with them, and then Frankie, and then Lenny, and they were the first guys to go to Europe in the, like David Morales and those guys went in the house era. But Tommy and Frankie were the first, I gotta include Lenny in there, went in the first DJs in the techno scene. And Tommy had brought back something that changed my whole life. He showed me a video. What rave was that?
Energy.
Oh my God. I mean, how many people in the field?
I still have that video.
Thousands. Here
thousands.
we are. We're kids
Energy
from
was the name of the
Brooklyn.
rave?
Yeah.
Kids from Brooklyn, right?
No, we're talking about like hardcore techno.
No,
not really,
At,
no.
at the time, no. It was like housey.
They were playing Black Box and
Black,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
Pump Up the Jam.
But what the
You know,
the
some of the
whole
records.
catalyst about it was the people, the DJs in Europe were pushing boundaries. I remember the sampling was big when it was just starting to come out, and these guys were sampling stuff, and I was like, whoa! So that influenced these guys, and they had the Muscle and Bones thing, which they blew up big in Europe, huge. But
We're big here in strip clubs.
Yeah, I used to.
But-
I called you.
my transition from they say disco to techno, there's a whole, 10 years, almost 10 years in between. But the techno thing, I started doing records at the time with these guys, and I happened to do a record called The Realm with Anthony Menino, Patty Black. Where
Patty
is
Black.
he? Patty
I
Black.
wanted
Yeah.
you, Patty, there was a spot here for you, but
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you
We
can't
miss
get
you, your
here. It's a
experience,
Tuesday.
so I gotta
The
mention
Moose
it.
tomorrow morning. I know all about that, but you're here in spirit.
Dennis Pino and them, and it was called The Realm, and it was one of the biggest techno records of the early 90s. And then from that point, when you make music like that and people know that you're a DJ, it was the first time I ever went to England, and then all of a sudden it just happened from there. And I just started making music for the scene that I was getting booked in. And then later on, it got into, we happened to stumble on something with Lenny and I. We took the breakbeats, which were big in England, and Belgian techno, and combined it, and we made this EP. It was called English Muffin, Blood of an English Muffin, and it took off. And now we kind of like got into another genre at the same time with Joey Beltram and all that, and Frankie was doing that, and these guys were doing their thing. But once it got to the hardcore thing, it became, the people from us took it from us and made it faster and faster and harder and harder. And then I got kind of like semi-retired. I started a family, and then that brings me here. There's another spot.
That's really why me and Frankie kind of split, because he was more into that, and I was more into
that's a
soulful
good segue,
R&B
right?
thing.
There you go.
And not to, I can't. Hopefully, my ex-wife sees this.
Hopefully.
I'm sure she's tuning in right now.
Hopefully, see?
I'm sure she's tuning in right now.
She came with us to England the first couple of times, and once she saw that, she
Oh,
goes, "You're not
no.
going back there." I said, "Damn, well, you bet your ass I am." So you know, she's like, "They're doing
But
drugs."
it's like, I mean, but on the techno side, I mean, as purists, I mean, it was very, I can only take so much of that personally, and I was happy to see Ralphie doing his thing, and it's funny because it was happening in Germany, and Germany at that time was the #2 market for music, and in the mid-90s, I was working at Atlantic, and I was getting a lot of stuff from the Warner company. They would send me all stuff they wanted me to pick up, and I'd say to myself, this is the #2 market, Germany, and you'd say, what kind of shit do they do? London would, London, 95,000 mixes, whatever the fuck came out, whatever. And all of a sudden you get the German package, and it's like Ice-T featuring the Weather Girls. And you're like,
That's right.
what
The weirdest
fucking
combinations,
person
yeah.
can cash that check in 2 weeks? That you can go to somebody and say, you know what? I got this idea. I want to use Ice-T and the fucking what? So that whole
Is this
German
PG
thing
or
was
R?
just
Very
amazing.
weird.
to me. The garbage that they was selling. But I want to go back to Tommy real quick. We didn't talk about Silvio Tancredi and your whole thing, because last week we had Todd Terry here, which the interview disappeared. But we talked about Masters at Work, which
Right.
those were your 2 records, the first 2 Masters
Right.
at Work records.
If I may, just to kind of put things together with Lenny and Frankie, how I met Lenny was I was going to Kingsborough with
corrupted
Sozy,
the poor
with
freak.
Sozy, and we were on
Lenny Dee.
WKRB, the radio station there, and of course, we started doing this whole dance thing there. And Lenny wound up just calling the number, and he's like, "Oh, you mind if I come with you?" Like, "Sure, come on up." And he came up. He came up with a joint. I think he was like 15. He was crazy. So that's how I wound up meeting Lenny, which led me to Frankie Bones. That's how that happened.
But the Silvio thing.
Getting to Silvio, I met Silvio through Bobby Davis from Shore Record Pool. When I left into Metro, I went to Shore Record Pool in the Bronx, and Bobby Davis, may he rest in peace, the guy was all about the music, didn't care if you were white, black, Spanish. He was amazing. And there was a lot of great guys in that pool. But he happened to just mix for the same man, the BB Girls, which wound up being a very big record. The second single, Jungle Swing,
Not so big.
yeah. All right, leave it alone. But that's it happens.
It happens.
And that
I have a
happened.
test
That
bed,
happened to
but-
be the first thing that I did for Silvio. Bobby hooked me with Silvio, and I started doing work for Silvio. And basically, what happened was there was another person there he was partners with in the studio. And one night during the night, he took all the equipment out. They had some kind of arm. It was Alan Shivik. For
It's
those
not the $40.
Very
Tommy.
legit guy.
for those who know. So I had equipment. I just started buying equipment that I had mentioned to you before, and I brought everything there, and then I became the studio guy at Northcott. And from there, I was so intertwined with the business that we had to become partners, and that was about '86.
And then from there, there were a bunch of sub-labels. There was Atmosphere, there was
Right.
Fourth Floor.
Well,
there was-
before all that, it was only
Fourth
Floor,
Floor
was the only our only label
But
at the first
but
one.
then you
Yes.
started to go into.
Fourth Floor, the first record was a record that I did with Lenny. It was Everything Bamboo. It was about smoking pot, of course. What else would we make a record about? And we made a few others.
You guys smoke pot?
We used to.
And then Ralphie's first record was White Lines.
And of course, I brought all the people that I was friendly with in to do this, and they were just learning. We were all just learning, having fun. Yeah. And people, of course, brought masters to us to sign, and Masters at Work
Todd,
was really Todd at that time.
And Mike Delgado.
And Mike, and they let him use them use the name, which is how it happened. I have to be honest, and I tell this story all the time. When I first heard those masters, I'm like, this thing, the sound quality is horrible.
Yeah.
And I have to give Silvio credit. He goes, let's put it out. You like the way it feels? I said, I love it. The rest was history. Yeah. After that, Black Ride and the rest of it. So sometimes your anal stuff can get in the way. Remember that, everybody.
And then after that, I actually met Tommy. I think it was 1990. I was DJing in Staten Island, and I booked one of the freestyle acts.
This guy's horrible.
So I'm in this booth, and he comes up, and in the DJ booth, it was all the way up, and there's a weird fuck. It was an old firehouse. I don't know what it was. And it was a crazy staircase. So he comes up, and I don't know, it was Spirit Matter, one of those acts. Or Leather and Lace, maybe. I don't know what. So he comes
They were
up.
performing?
Yeah, he was acting as the road manager. So he walks in the booth, right? And he comes up. It was just me. There's not.
Where's the blow?
So he comes up. He goes, "Can I smoke up here?" So I'm like, "You could fucking you could have."
I don't care if you burn.
So he's over there.
Oh,
He
right.
gave me his number. I met with him, and I went to his office. I met Silvio, and then he and I got very close. And then, a couple of years later, which was 1993, which is when Henry Street really started, we were at, I kept talking about how, I wanted to do a label. I was kind
I'm
of,
like, guy, leave me alone.
I was kind of looking, looking at, I was looking at all the shit that was going
you
on.
want to do a label.
So I said, let me change this guy's life. You have that moment where you say, can you do something good for somebody?
You had the
I could have gone anywhere I wanted to go. I said, let me go to an Italian guy. So we did. Henry Street was basically started outside Sound Factory Bar, and I changed his fucking life. And I just that was pretty much it. Then
He ruined
He
everything.
ruined his whole life. And then after that, he basically closed it. He's out of the music business. So it was basically, if you really want to get out completely, you do something together. A couple of years later, it all falls apart.
So let me ask you another question. What do you guys think of the music business today? The music that's out today, the way the scene is now. Yeah, the way the scene is now in the United States, where now there's these big dance festivals in the United States. It took all these years to get them out here, but now it's like the biggest craze going. I mean, what do you guys think about that whole movement?
I just can't believe it. I mean, God bless them. I would never begrudge somebody for being successful. But obviously, a lot of people have been doing that. And to that extent, these huge, they were called raves, but obviously EDM is the acronym now. But it's amazing the money that they're making, and it's just become, everybody wants to be part of the Paris Hilton and the Kardashian mindset. I think is something that permeates through that.
And what do you think about how a lot of DJs, like the residency doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah. Clubs don't exist anymore.
Well, I mean, a lot of people talk about, like DJs like Danny Tenaglia and Roger Sanchez. They talk about examples of how, you made it when you got a residency in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. How you put in your time, and then once you got that residency in Manhattan, it's like you were it as a DJ, and that doesn't exist anymore today. So that whole feel is sort of gone.
Now it's in spaces this size, specialized.
It's all bottle service, and it's the promoter that could bring the most people in, and the music. You don't even have to be playing. It's like the music has nothing to do with any of it. It's about how many people came, how many bottles of Ciroc did you sell, and that's pretty much all it was. Back in the '90s when it was more of a drug thing. Not that I'm, promoting drugs, but when it really was, you had stuff like but what I'm trying to say was but you had promoters there that were basically kind of promoting the DJ. Where now it's just all about the bottle service. Yep. It's really all about how many people are coming in. Because at the Limelight, those guys had a residency, and you had that steady flow over there.
Right. If you go back to the days of Danny and myself, we would start work 10 o'clock at night and work till 4 o'clock. like it was nothing. Today, I remember, excuse me, when I first got booked in Europe, after a couple of times, the rave thing was just starting to branch out from England and go to like Italy and all these other places. So naturally, I would do something somewhere, and they would book me, and all of a sudden I look and I see like 10 DJs, and I'm like, all right, whatever. All of a sudden you get to like go to a place like Switzerland, and they drive you to this thing, and it's like the size of Madison Square Garden. It's a freaking huge hall. And all of a sudden you look at the lineup, you see your name, and you're playing 45 minutes. And I'm like, 45 minutes?
It's like
At 40 minutes, I'm just getting into it. But what it is they try to get as many DJs as they can from all these different genres or countries, however the music was, and they try to get it all together. And the difference from back then was we were playing vinyl, and me, I'm a cutting edge guy. I'm all into the technology and anything, but when we played, we worked. There's a lot of guys out there. I'm not going to knock EDM as a whole. I'm not going to knock any DJs that do it as a whole, but when you're going to stand in front of a crowd and you're going to go like this, and you're hitting buttons of pre-recorded stuff. Again, don't take this the wrong idea. Anybody out there that likes EDM.
It's the truth.
No, let them take it the wrong way.
It's the truth.
They're looking into a fucking
They're
laptop.
making guys like, I don't want to say guys like me. There were so many other guys that have passed where I did, but I was at the beginning of this whole thing, and not to say, well, you know what, it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here, but the money that I made compared to the money that these guys are making, it's like ridiculous. But you know what? That's how it is. It's how things evolved, and that's it. And you know, the original question was, what do I think about the music today? Some of it's okay. I want to tell you another thing. A lot of those sounds, you know where you got those freaking sounds.
That's right.
You just remember where you got those sounds from.
And hip hop.
A lot of you people out there, no, I'm not going to knock anybody.
Well, I just
Let's move on.
But I you know, to have a serious note, you know, when people say this, you know, very few people ever really break down how the club scene destroyed the fucking music business. Because what happened was, when you had a guy, I was with Danny last week, we did 9:30, Bloody Marys, 10 o'clock, boom, 10 to 4. That was it. It was just, that was just how it was.
Did you
10
change
to 4,
from Bloody
everywhere you
Marys
went.
to something else?
Well, 10 o'clock it was stopping. The Bloody Marys.
Yeah, and then went to the next.
But what happens
The
is,
warm-up.
you were playing, you were taking people on a mission. It was like, it was a whole thing.
Right.
So now what happens is, if you got 10 guys spinning and you want to get booked again, you're not going to come and play beginning of the night, dope shit you love, you know you can't break. You're going to come with the heat. So if Everybody Dance Now is out and the Power by Snap and you're in that fucking genre, everybody's playing those records because they want to get booked the next week. So now you're not breaking music anymore. That's a major breakdown.
Oh,
in music.
yeah.
When hip
No
hop,
doubt.
if there was a big hip hop record and it didn't matter what club you went to, a strip club, a fucking bar next door, wherever it was, if OPP was out, everybody played OPP. Dance music and house music got to a point where Louis is playing Louis. Timmy's playing Timmy. Tenegli's playing Tenegli. Junior Vasquez playing Junior Vasquez. Everybody's making their own fucking mixes. You're not going to break records because I think, and I say this is another thing I always talk about. Stardust is probably the last record I heard cross formats. Black stations, white stations, house, underground, techno. After that, I mean, what? You're going to say Get Lucky? Maybe. I don't even know. I don't even know. But the reality is that killed EDM, and those 20 DJs at night ruined the music business. It was that much more difficult to break a record.
Well, I mean, I agree and I disagree. I mean, I think that what EDM has done for us here is it's brought dance music back to the forefront. Because for a very long time, on a commercial level, like dance music, you weren't even hearing dance music on a radio station in New York City, right? For a while, you know. So I think the whole EDM craze, I credit maybe David Guetta and the Black Eyed Peas coming together and making I Got a Feeling and going mainstream, and like now hip hop artists and dance music artists are working together to make the record. So I think it did help in some sense to bring dance music more popular.
But I was talking more about the 10 DJs on a roster. Because it was just that much harder to break a record.
Well, everybody's here.
You also got Black Eyed Peas, Interscope, Jimmy Iovine. You know, it could have been fucking Marky Mark with David Guetta. That was going to happen. Could have been Rico Suave today. That would have worked.
A thing that I think that killed the business that we knew is more of the fact that record companies couldn't make money on artistless records.
Yes.
That was the main thing. You know, everybody wanted to be as deep and underground as possible, and everybody loved it. But then once that contingent of people went left, there was nobody behind them. So, you know,
And
I
then
think that
also,
was
the tangible vinyl went to digital, and anybody could download. Who's going to pay for it? And that's when same thing in the movie business. It's happening the same way.
So we want to get you guys on the turntables because we want to hear you guys play. So one last question I got for each one of you guys is top 3 records that you used to love to play inside of a club, that you just love the sound when you hear it on the club sound system, like you used to rock it. What were the top 3 that you would say?
3. I'm horrible at that.
Or even like top 1. Just name that one record that you used to love to rock. When you played that record, the dance floor was going nuts.
I could tell. I even know
She
yours.
Has a Way.
There you go.
Native Love.
The high fashion version.
Right. That was Plaza Suite, yeah. Absolutely.
Clock has that like ageless sound.
Yeah, oh yeah, no doubt.
1982. That was the height.
And loving's really my game.
Yes.
Big.
You gave me my first copy of that.
Big.
But I will say with Danny.
He's
what
probably
I-
got 12 copies
But
now.
what I will say is, yeah, because Danny wrote on his records. I don't like writing on my list.
That's right.
But Danny, I Feel Love.
He wrote on his record.
That's a big record for you. I
Big
mean,
one.
I heard you.
Yeah.
That's I always.
Donna
admired.
Summers?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was a big.
Oh,
Donna Summer.
Summer.
Donna Summers.
Yes. That
Come on,
record,
man. Oh, we got Nicky over there. He's cringing.
that record was way ahead of its time.
Well, you know
Oh,
what the biggest
absolutely.
Donna Summer fan is, right?
You're wrong.
My Uncle Sal is the biggest Donna Summer
Sal,
fan.
You know what?
No, my Uncle Sal.
I think he still has pictures in his
He
bedroom.
has,
Music
his
is
basement is
timeless.
dedicated to Donna Summer.
So, Ralphie Dee, your number 1 song that you used to love to rock in a club.
That's kind of hard for me to say because I've been through so many genres, but off the
I
top
don't
of
even
my
know.
head-
Fucking large is he?
Yeah.
He was dancing.
That
Huh?
question
Check
I
it
had.
out.
Yeah, check it out.
The
All the
party is
people going.
burning.
Hey, listen, Nicky Rap, Club B, all those raps, all those big rap tracks are paid in full. Come on, there was so many of them. But if I had
The
to
show.
the show, how y'all feel out there?
Oh, here we go.
No,
Yeah.
but you used to play Galaxy.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
that was a
Now,
big
I tell you what, you know,
Galaxy.
that's the first thing. I would
That's a great
say
track.
Galaxy by War, even today, all through that whole time,
Oh,
except
yeah.
maybe, except
Are
maybe
we
during
gonna
the
hear
race.
some of these right now?
We're definitely going to hear
Absolutely.
some of
Galaxy
Yeah,
War.
but
It's hard
Tommy,
for
you
you to-
didn't.
it's hard for you to pick
Oh,
one.
let me
How about-
freaking finish over here. Oh,
Well, wait, hold on. Wait. I just want to mention, I'm playing vinyl. I'm playing original.
That's right.
Yes.
Danny Cole
So
is
you're
playing
not going to
vinyl.
hear.
He's keeping
You're
it
not
real.
going to hear anything out
And
of the
oh, wait a
way.
minute, hold on, wait. He's modest, this guy. In September, Danny Cole is going to be one of the newest members of the Legends of Vinyl. And,
Very good.
and listen,
I'm talking about.
the man deserves it. He's a legend, this man.
Why are they waiting until September?
He didn't need.
I think
Listen,
September they're doing it yet.
let me go on record, and I'm a pretty opinionated guy, and I'm very proud of you. You don't need that sheet of paper. I want you to get it. You're a legend. You've been a legend a long time.
That's why we have you on the show.
All right, let's go, Mike.
Tommy, you want to talk about how I changed your life?
Johnny changed my
So
life.
if you can't pick one record that you used to
I mean,
play, how about one record that you made
Work
that
it.
you felt was
Work
like-
it out.
If I'll do the what record that I think sounds great in the club that really Hills of Kathmandu,
Funhouse, 5 in the morning, Funhouse.
T Connection,
Oh,
do
man.
what you want to do,
Good
Disco
song.
Circus. I mean, all those fun
Monster
disco
Circus.
records,
Great track. All right, so everybody, we're going to throw these 3 guys on the turntables, and they're going to take us back, Brooklyn style. 3 Brooklyn pioneers: Ralphie Dee, Tommy Musto, Danny Cole. Live from Redhook. We're at the Function House. These guys are going on now. We'll see you in a few seconds.